11, Wendy staged a filibuster to protest a potential cut of $5.4 billion in education fund of Texas students. Senator Davis believes in equal pay for equal work. She has fought to end workplace discrimination by passing legislation to empower victims of wage discrimination, a bill that was vetoed. She stands for women's health, women's safety. She is a fighter for Texas families. Houston, please help me welcome the next governor of Texas.
Standing here. I'm overwhelmed. I really am. Thank you so much for greeting me as warmly and as enthusiastically as you have this evening. Thank you, Adrian, for introducing me so kindly, and to Sam and Natalie for helping to put this event together tonight. You obviously know how to put an event together. And point out that I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues from the Texas House, Representative Harold Dutton. They are a part of an incredibly powerful voice that we bring to the Texas legislature on behalf of Texas families, and I'm really proud to serve with both of them. I'm so excited about this race.
We're gonna win!
It's hard for me to believe that a week ago, it was only a week ago, it feels like it's been a month already, but a week ago I had the privilege of standing in the same auditorium where I graduated from high school to announce that I was going to be a candidate, that I am a candidate to be the 48th governor of the great state of Texas. I had an opportunity earlier today to visit another one of Houston's fine college campuses. I went to the downtown campus of the University of Houston. I see the Vice President of the student body, Christopher, back there waving. And I met this amazing woman, Nell. I think Nell is out at the check-in table. Here she is. So Nell is a high school teacher, or she's retired, actually, teacher. And she was telling me about her personal work to register voters in the state of Texas and to make sure that their voices become a part of what happens in this next election cycle. And Nell has been willing to stand in rain and cold and heat, and she'll continue to do that, I know, right up until the deadline, the last possible person can be registered to vote in the November 2014 election. And not only has she stood in all kinds of temperatures to make sure that people's voices are heard, but the other day she registered on one single day, on one single high school campus in Houston, 180 new voices. So let's think about that for a minute. That's 180 people who will now have a voice in what will happen in the future of the state of Texas. They'll have a voice in what happens in public education. 180 families will be represented in that conversation. And that's what this is all about, right? It's making sure that everyone has a voice and is part of the decision making and the way they are represented in the Texas Capitol. And I've been there for a long time. Representative Dutton and Representative Reynolds have been there even longer than me. And we all understand the power of voice and the privilege of being able to be a part of giving voice to Texas families. I, of course, have my own understanding of voice from a very personal experience in my life. I don't know how many of you may have seen the speech that I gave to the National Press Club a couple of months ago, right after the filibuster. But I had the privilege, of telling a story from my childhood. My grandfather was a farmer from Muleshoe, Texas, up in the Panhandle. And he was never a person who had the privilege of owning his own land. He was a tenant farmer and always farmed for other people. He was one of the hardest working people I've ever known. Along with my grandmother, they raised 14 children together. And my grandfather had a stroke when he was in his mid-60s. It left him very debilitated. He lived in a nursing home from that point forward. And when we would go and visit my grandmother at her home in Muleshoe, we would always go and get him and have him come and spend the weekend. And part of what he suffered as a consequence of that stroke was the inability to speak. But he would try so hard to communicate. And I have such powerful memories of him sitting in his wheelchair at the kitchen table, tapping on the table for me to come. And I would sit with him with pen and paper in hand while he laboriously tried to communicate and dictate a letter for me to write to a friend. That experience was very powerful for me because I would watch the pain that he experienced as he tried to communicate, as he tried to have his voice heard. And it was tremendously important to me to make sure that I got what he was saying just right. Invariably, because it was so hard for him and he would be so frustrated, he would start crying. And as you can imagine, a little girl watching her grandfather cry, I would start crying too. But it taught me the most powerful lesson about the importance of giving voice, the importance of having a voice. And what you all are doing, of course, is making sure that you're enlisting people, you're inviting people to recognize their own voice and to use that voice in a very, very powerful way in the election cycle, not just in November of 2014, but beyond and beyond and beyond. In every local race, in every school board race, in every state house race, they'll have an opportunity to make sure that their families are being represented because of the work that you all are going to do to make that happen. And when you are out in your communities, when you're out in your neighborhoods and you're inviting people to participate in owning the power of their own voice, you'll have a chance to talk about your own stories. I can imagine the amazing stories that are present in this room today and the amazing stories that you're going to hear about as you invite people to help communicate to you what it is that's important to them and their family and what it is about their life that brought that importance to them. I think if you are here working to try to help me be elected to governor, you probably know a lot about my personal story. You probably know about my journey from being a single mom who was living in poverty and facing the challenges of how to care for a young daughter as a single parent. That my opportunity to care for her was made possible because of education. That a community college in my community opened that door for me and ultimately landed me at Harvard Law School and ultimately landed me right here tonight to be talking to you with the honor of serving a community in Tarrant County in the Texas Senate and hopefully with the honor in November of 2014 being elected to serve the Texas community in the governor's office. What I found in my experience, and I've had a lot of experience in listening to people's voices that I represent in the Texas Senate and before that on the City Council in Fort Worth. What I found is that it's important to tell our stories, not because they're unique or special. My story isn't unique or special. In fact, my story is pretty common. There's so many families in Texas that can tell similar stories of overcoming struggle and doing amazing things for themselves and their families. And that's what these conversations in your community will be about. And as people begin to talk about their own life story, of course, it'll inspire them to participate in a way that they may not have participated before. That's the most important work that we are going to be about in the next 13 months. Making sure that people embrace the power that they have, that they believe that they can play a role in what happens to their future and their family's future. That's, of course, what voting is all about. But we know in Texas, a lot of people are staying home. In fact, more people are staying home in Texas by percentage of our population than any other state. And I think you would agree with me that they're staying home because they think their voice just won't matter. They're accustomed to failed leadership that isn't listening to the things that matter to them. And we will invite them to believe. Do you believe?
Yes!
I believe 100% that we are going to change the face of leadership in Texas. The face is going to have ears on its head. Listen to what Texas families say are important to them. It's going to make education a priority. It's going to make sure that every Texas family has an opportunity to play a role in this strong economy that we have by having a good job and taking care of their families. It's going to be a face that represents moms and dads, sisters, brothers, children who have sent their loved ones overseas to fight for us and our country and who expect us, as they should, to welcome their loved one back, to help them get back into the workplace in Texas and to return them to their families whole and healthy of body and mind. That's our responsibility. I am running for the governor of the state of Texas because I believe so much in the promise of Texas. And I want to renew and restore the commitment that Texas could and should be making to every single person who lives here. I want to make sure that every Texan, no matter where they come from, has an opportunity to do whatever it is they dream of doing. That we guarantee that no matter where you start in Texas, it will not dictate how far you can go, and that every person here has the power and the ability, because they will be part of a state that's making possible for them every opportunity that they dream of. And of course, I'm going to need all of your help to make that happen. A lot of folks are counting us out already, right?
Yeah.
And we know better than that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I've got to tell you, I've had people count me out plenty of times in my life before. The state Senate seat that I represent was not drawn for a Democrat, but I represent it very proudly. Of Texas isn't ready for a Democrat to lead the state.
No.
No, they are wrong. And we know they're wrong because we know what our values are. We know that our values are those that are shared by Texans across the state. And we are all about to embark on an amazing journey to make sure that those values are given voice in the governance that is such an important part of giving voice to that value. So here's what we need you to do. Here's what I need you to do, please. Get deputized. I'm sure you're all learning about that. It's really not that hard, and we're encouraging people all over the state to do that. when you get deputized and you have the ability to register voters like Nell has done. And you, of course, will change the face of Texas by virtue of playing that role. I know that we're all incredibly busy. We have children to feed, we have jobs that we work in, and there will be days when we'll feel tired and maybe not want to get out there and start knocking on those doors or talking to the people that we're running into at soccer games or at the grocery store or at church. But please draw upon your own power, own it, recognize it, believe in it, and give voice to it by making sure that you're giving voice to as many people across the state as we possibly can. Of course, your job is the city of Houston. My job is the state. We'll be asking you, of course, to make phone calls, to block walk, and to speak to your neighbors and be a part of this amazing accomplishment that I have no doubt in my mind we are going to achieve, and that is we are going to take Texas back. I am so thankful for each and every one of you. So incredibly thankful for each and every one of you. I know that every amount of energy that you're going to spend over the next 13 months will be spent because we, not me, this race isn't about me, it's about Texas, because we want to create a better Texas, and I have no doubt that we will. Thank you all so very much.